Welcome to Mandorla. We humbly invite you on a journey with us as we explore and deep dive in what it means to be human through this great time of awakening, generously sharing wisdom and practical tools that have helped us on our path of ascension, introducing other conscious leaders within our community to expand the collective mind to new possibilities.
Mandorla inspires us to become balanced in body and soul, feminine and masculine, physical and spiritual, creating a bridge between heaven and earth. Within this podcast, we will be communicating with all parts of ourselves, understanding our true essence, discovering our life's calling, transforming and healing ourselves and the people around us. Without further ado, let us begin. Hello and welcome to another episode of Mandorla. I am Katrina and this is Katrina, and together we are K&K Illuminating Light. And today we are talking into discernment. I feel like we have a lot to say on this, and I feel like it feeds off last week's episode of releasing responsibility for others. And so to get clear, I think it's discerning on when to spend our energy supporting others with what we know, and when to hold space and allow them to work it out for themselves. And that can be hard. That can be a hard thing to do for the people that we love, especially if we have that knowing of maybe we've experienced things ourselves and the hard way. And so we want to try to make the journey for others a little bit easier than what we've maybe navigated it ourselves. But what I've learned as a parent especially is that there's some things that we signed up for in the human to actually physically experience. And there's no one that can talk us out of that physical experience. And it must be important for whatever reason.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that has really affected my heart over the years. Having a higher perspective or having an understanding of what's going on for someone and not being able to support them and not being able to bring them into the same understanding so that they live a happier life and come to a place of acceptance and love and compassion and just hold that has been something that I've really struggled with, and I'm only just starting to see my body make the actual shift from that, right now actually. This is currently live for me. And what I know about it is it's allowing myself to come to a place of living from my heart instead of my mind. And so there are so many examples of where I could take that, but like yourself, one of the most important reasons why my body would be wanting to get this right now is because of my children, and because as they turn, 14 and I am no longer their spiritual guardian, they then come into their own set of contracts that mistakes are going to be made, because that's how we learn. And even if I have a higher perspective, even if I have the understanding, if I can foresee that there's going to be a problematic situation occur from that, staying in the heart and knowing that I have to come to acceptance and love and compassion and allow the scenario to play out. I think it's a really tricky one. I really do think that it's a tricky one. And personally, it brings up grief in my heart that I can't just physically shift them to a certain place, that they have to go through it. And so I think it's a huge challenge, I feel like, for us to overcome. But what it does do, is it allows us to come to a place of peace. And I think that when we're not there, that's, I guess, the directional tool, is that it makes our bodies go in turmoil when we're not able to help. And I think that the feeling of peace is what we're trying to achieve here, is to be okay with it and be at peace that it is the way that things will play out in life.
Yeah. I was just, as you were talking then, I was having a remembrance, I guess, of what I used to say when I was in my early 20s, because like as a teenager, I was pretty damn rebellious. And if people were going to tell me, give me all their words of wisdom, I was going to go and deliberately do what they told me not to do just to experience for myself. And probably like that is a very negative, and I'm so grateful that my teenagers aren't the same, but that was me, right? I was going to experience it regardless of what anyone told me. But what I was so grateful for is that I was raised with really good morals and values from a young age. My mum was very much about, you know, manners and what's right and that sort of thing. And I'm so grateful for that, because no matter what I did that was pushing the limits, I always came back to like, it was never that bad that I was hurting anyone else, right? Maybe I hurt myself more than, or disrespected myself more than what I would ever want for anyone, but I still came back to what was right, and I didn't hurt anyone else, and it was because of having those values and those morals. So my advice now, if I could go back and give it to my parents, would be hold space for me.
Yeah.
Remind me of who I am when I was in all of that, like, and just even if it wasn't, you know, conversations, just know that I was going to get through that, right? And so I think that there's so many scenarios with people in our lives where we can accept that that's where you're at, but we can hold hope that you're going to get through this, because I know who you are at the core, and we always we make mistakes, and if we're blessed to have people that live with integrity and are the examples, then we find our way back on course, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what the only thing that we can really truly do for the people we love is be that example and live with that integrity. And that is more potent to show what's possible, which we've talked into before, showing what's possible to bring those souls that want to go and experience polarity, which we're all here to do. It gives them that true north to come back to again and again and again. And I guess that's all we can do as parents, right? Set the tone and then allow each individual to go off and experience what they want, and then hopefully find their true north on whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, and I feel like what's coming through as you're speaking is like that's unconditional love. Like I love you even through the mistakes. I love that you're making mistakes. I love you, and I can be at peace with you doing all of that, because I know that this journey is going to incur that. Like it is and this is where I think we're in the higher heart chakra here, is because that there is no bigger love than allowing that to occur, although it feels the opposite. Like in my mind, and this is the difference, and when it's not incoherence, in my mind, I think to myself that I'm not loving someone if I'm not helping them, right? But actually love is allowing them to experience and not interjecting. And I think that also, and this is where discernment comes into it, right? I think that when they come to you asking for help, trust that. Like that's when they're ready to get the nugget, if you have the nugget. But if you're just wanting to project all the time into what you believe to be correct, even if it is what you believe to be the highest, if you're doing that, you're trying to change where they're at. You're trying to change their path, and that's not love. That's what's coming through, yeah.
But actually, to go back to what you were saying, if someone's coming to you, yes, awesome. Let's lean in if you feel to. But the discernment is also, if that same person has come to you with the same problem again and again and again, and you know that they're not actually taking any of your advice, not to say our advice is or that, but if it's a reoccurring situation that's not getting better due to new change of behavior, you are 100% wasting your energy, and that's a lack of self-love on your part.
Yeah.
So that's when the discernment comes in of, hang on a second, I'm actually not helping them by feeding into this story anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a boundary there, and I'm actually going to hold space and tell them, like, communicate it. I think you've got this because there's nothing more that I can offer you, and then move forward from there.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we would all have people in our lives, right, that come and they take away. It's not to say they're going to go and take your advice. That's not what we're necessarily looking at. But are they doing what they need to do to stop making excuses for where they're at and at least keep trying new things to move forward?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the people that we get hungry to help, right?
Yeah.
We want to help them. But if it's not that, then that we're not actually helping. By spending that. Someone used to call their ask holes. They'll ask a lot, but they actually just do not take any advice. So just don't use discernments with ask holes.
Yeah.
But then, like there's so many situations where I could get examples actually of like, when we think it's actually brutal and harsh to pull back and not play into those stories anymore, when actually that's exactly what those people need.
Yeah.
It's actually, no, I know you're capable of way more than what you're telling me right now. So for that, I'm just going to not even play into those excuses because you are so much more than that. Yeah.
And I've actually been through deep grief around this because in some cases I've actually had to give space to those relationships because it has become something that isn't good for either of us. And so I think this is like, for me, it's like the tripwire that makes me continue to play out in scenarios with them, as opposed to what actually needs to occur sometimes is space. And then like open to all the possibilities thereafter. And I have done this with my birth family. I have done it in friendships, and I've done it even with children and in partnerships at a more probably like smaller degree. But in some cases that's been necessary, and I think it's the thing that holds us back from actually getting to where we want. Because like I can sit here now knowing on the other side of that occurring, the relationships I have, like how potent they are now and how much more at peace I am, how much more like I've like let go of scenarios, and that's created this more heart-to-heart connection. That's the ultimate goal. But on my way transitioning towards that, there was a lot of grief of letting go of those relationships in order to create that space. And I think that that's potentially the thing that we avoid doing, which doesn't evolve the relationship, because I guess we can get stuck in making it mean that that's going to be forever. And what's occurred every time for me is that it has actually like catapulted us into such a deeper, richer relationship. Yeah. And sometimes that has like taken a while, and sometimes it's been immediate. Like it's just what needed to occur. But yeah, I guess the grief is something, to be aware of, because it's a part of the transition. But I think if like we're looking at it in a way of the way you and I look at our reality and how we create it, what we're actually grieving is a part of ourselves that we are no longer going to be playing out in that identity or in that way anymore. And we have to let it go to allow it to evolve and to allow that internal part of us to transform. And then when it comes back and meets us, it meets us at the new evolved version, right?
Yeah. Well, that's leading me to the higher heart chakra. So before we got on here, you were talking to me a little bit about the higher heart chakra. How would you explain that to people? I
feel like this is just my lens right now, but what I feel like is it's incoherence with the mind. So I don't think that, and I say like a journey from the mind to the heart, but we're talking about the higher heart chakra. So I think how the higher heart chakra works is we are now coherent here and then in the mind. And so what we're thinking about, what we speak about, what our belief systems are, they're all in coherence with the higher heart chakra, which if I were to explain what I think that means, it is my higher self. So it's in alignment with the highest potential of creation that I could potentially like do in this lifetime. So every thought that gets sent from the higher heart chakra is being sent from the higher self for the highest possible scenario, potential, and creation that we can create on earth. And everything that I'm going to reverse engineer it right now, if we were just coming from our minds, that's connected to our belief systems, our patterns, our conditioning, like all of the things that have happened in that theta stage from 1 to 7 that are anchored in our bodies. That's when we're coming from the mind. When we're coming from the higher heart chakra, we're coming from the highest possible potentials that are not linked. So it's kind of linking into last week's episode when what came through, and it was a bit of a shock to me that we let go of identity, but I can understand why that step's necessary for us to step into the higher heart chakra, because there's no limitations when you're in there and you're always coming from the most purest essence, always for the right reason. And if I wrap that back into our conversation about what we're talking about with discernment, it's like the higher heart chakra will always choose what's best for both people. It's not coming from, I have this story about my birth family, or I have this story about friendships, or I have this story about how children are meant to be. It's coming from a scenario where none of that exists, so detached from identity. It's coming from a higher perspective for the good of all. It's a oneness. It's an absolute oneness that you're coming from. And I think that the journey there is like everything that we've been talking about. There's grief, there's non-responsibility, there's being discerning what is and what isn't. But I think when you're coming from your higher heart chakra, it just knows.
I feel like we're putting all the pieces together. So last week we talked about the letting go of responsibility or handing back that to where it is. And now we're discerning where we're spending our energy, right? Because all of us have people that we love, and it's in us. It's who we are to want to support and help them, every single person, right? However, we're talking about fine tuning where we spend our energy. And I think where we're going with this is, let's talk about abundance, because what happens is when we discern that, hang on, I've spent to the maximum of my ability, I've helped in that situation, I have to pull that back, because no longer is that good for that person, or which is what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
It's not good for either of us.
Yeah.
It's what's good for me is good for all, and that's not the case, right?
Yes.
So you're pulling your energy back here and spending it in co-creation with other people, where if someone is in a place where they are open to your support, that's always a co-creation. It feeds both. It's an equal exchange of energy, and you'll both be gifted something from that. So it's spending our energy wisely, just like spending our money wisely, right?
Yeah.
And so if we fine tune that, and all of it is like, if we prioritize ourselves and being who we are, this is where we get to. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's the third eye is creating the vision from our higher self, right? So when we're pulling the energy, putting the energy exactly where we need to be, we're in full creation without identity. Things that we can think that we want, but if we surrender to what you're talking about, we're actually creating life beyond what we could possibly imagine life to be.
Like pure
abundance.
creation energy. And it is our birthright. I know that to the core of my being. I've known it to be true my whole life. I haven't had full articulation, and I'm still learning articulation around this. But as I'm moving closer and closer, and I truly believe that the higher heart chakra is the gateway or the portal to experience full creation energy. And I just want to like rewind a little bit, because something was dropping in around an explanation around what it looks like to be not. So you were just saying about the higher heart chakra and how, you know, when we are living and operating from that place, like things that are going to be created in our reality are going to be better than what we could ever have imagined. But if we're in co-creation with people still, and it's feeding from, and this is the explanation, I guess, that I wanted to get to from a belief system of like, oh, that's my brother, I have to support. That is coming from, it's coming from the mind. It's not coming from the higher heart chakra. The higher heart chakra will always create the scenario that's best for all. What we need to discern and what we need to get good at is disconnecting or recognizing where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Is this coming from this?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's the path that we've been walking on. I feel like the episodes that we've been creating have becoming closer and closer and closer to this. And I mean, something that like I love about like jumping on these podcasts is we kind of have a theme that we know that we're going into because we've been seeing it in our realities, but we don't know what we're going to talk about when we get on here. And so each week we are receiving so much through just getting on this and having these conversations because it's pulling through new information for us also. So like I absolutely love that so much. And
from our higher heart, like that's where it's coming from too. It is like our higher selves being birthed
coming
through this, right?
Yep.
And so it ends up being better than what we could have actually planned out because that's the perfect example of what we're talking about right now.
And it's the energy out and the energy in. So we're going out on a podcast for everybody, but we're actually receiving in equally, just as much for ourselves. Yeah. And I love this because like I know that for me 17 years ago there became something like active in me that I knew that this, and you know, like it's like hindsight's amazing because I can look back now and I can understand it, but I didn't have anyone helping me understand it back then. And so 17 years ago I became really aware that a few times a year, I would grieve loved ones as though they had died and I didn't understand it. I'd be like, it literally felt like I was going through the motion of their funeral, like that they had actually passed. And what I know about it now is it's been a direction for me because every time that has happened for me in my reality, I've gone, oh, I want to lean in more. And it's continued to create and shape a lean in for a deeper connection with loved ones that had I not gone through this fake grief stage, my body may not have made me jump to that. And what I understand about it now, also being way more conscious to why it's playing out now as opposed to 17 years ago when I was unaware, is that there is certain things that we've come to do here on this earth. And this one thing has been something that I've been working on, and it is all interconnected with leading me to my higher heart chakra. There are like so many areas and ways in which that I can see that the path has always led me here. But to be sitting here not knowing what we're talking about and this path lead me here at a time that I'm starting to realize and come to peace with loved ones and experience relationships that I didn't even think possible because of walking through all of this. It has been not an easy journey, but like it makes so much sense.
Well, I think to get clear on what you've probably done too in those relationships is that, like talked about this a lot this morning, but having a bar set of what you expect in relationships, whether it's your brother, whether it's a friend, whether it's your son, it's an equal bar.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who the role is. I'm really passionate about this. It's like, because my bar is very fair. It's only ever what I would give back anyway, right? And it comes back to the morals and the values that I was taught from a young age and doing what's right. So it's like treat people with respect, take responsibility for what's yours, you remember your manners, communicate in a loving way, right? So this is my bar. And so I have made a really firm decision that I'm okay with only having a handful of people that I let in close. Doesn't mean I don't have a lot of people in my life that I love and care about. But, you know, it's like, how close do you allow people to get depending on this bar that I've set?
Yeah.
And that's my GPS system. It's like, it's a way for me to navigate. And I think that communication on what is expected from it. Say you're a business owner and you're employing people. This is like probably one of the things that I see go astray the most. If it is not communicated what's expected in that role, then the lines are blurred. There's a lot of gray area, and people, maybe it's human nature, maybe it's not, but seem to want to blur the lines, right? Kind of me as a teenager.
Yeah.
It's probably exactly the same thing. It's like, but if you have a solid employer that's like, this is what's expected, it's non-negotiable, this is the consequence if you actually do not maintain this, which the consequence would be loss of job, right?
Yeah.
Or pay, say you break something, you've got to pay for it, whatever it is, right? It's really clearly articulated. Then that employee knows exactly what their place is and what they get away with and what they don't, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with every relationship in our life.
And the only reason you find that businesses don't have clear boundaries like that is because of a belief, a pattern, a conditioning of, I want to be the nice boss, or I don't want to be too harsh, or it comes from this identity that is attached to, this is what I seen as a kid and this is what's acceptable, and now I'm going to bring this into this. But the actual highest potential here is if we are not attached to the story anymore of who we have to be, and we're in the higher heart chakra, then we would be creating business in a way that is effortless, it flows, the right people stay, because the wrong people absolutely are not going to be a vibrational match to that business, and then that business thrives.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so also, like, the unwillingness to follow through with consequences is where things go astray as well. So, and we can all be guilty of this, because especially in parenting, right? You're like, why do you have to push it to that point where now you can't go to that thing that you were looking forward to because I said that was a consequence? I want you to go to the thing that you would love, but it's like, right?
Yeah.
But if we set a consequence, we have to follow through with the consequence. Otherwise, there is no trust there anymore, because they think they can blur the lines and get away with it. And guess what? They probably can if you don't follow through with consequences.
And what we're actually teaching our children when we do this, and I am 100% working on this, I'm probably at maybe a 4 out of 10. Like, I'm not great with this yet.
Thank you for your honesty.
But what I do know about this, and that's something that's helping me to like really push through this right now, is that when I say to my children, you know, no, you can't have that, and then they keep asking me for it, and then I end up saying yes, what I'm actually reflecting to them is boundaries, and that I'm willing to, at a certain point, go, okay, I give up and do the thing. Now, how that looks for them in social pressure situations is a friend saying to them, hey, we should just like jump off this bridge, you know, like it'd be fun. And them going, no, I don't think it's right. And then after the 5th time going, oh, okay, because they've seen it, like I'm their role model and they've seen it. So it's not even just about, like, it's for so many reasons it's important. And that explanation actually helps me to go, no, I'm sticking to this because this is important for so many more reasons than what it looks like right now.
So many things we could go into, even entering a relationship with someone, and especially like with young girls, right? If they don't have their boundaries that are being articulated, how quickly things can get blurred. The gray area can turn into, relationships happening, physical things happening that the girl or the guy, each one didn't actually want. Then it can turn into pregnancies. It can turn into all the things. It can turn into lack of self-worth and like setting the bar of how a young woman or a young man gets treated in every relationship moving forward. Like, these are the things that boundaries, like communication, boundaries and consequences. Now, I've got to a point in my life where I am cutthroat with consequences because I know that I'm really good at talking out what's going to happen if this bar is not met. And only through all of the experiences of doing everything the hard way, my teenage years, am I at this point now. But I'm like, no negotiation, and I don't feel sorry for anything because it's so clear, and it's always from love.
Yeah.
This bar
It's
is
the
a
higher
very
heart chakra.
far, it's a
it
very
is.
fair bar. So if that means, guys, you're not going to be, I have let so many friendships and relationships go because they haven't wanted to meet the bar.
Yeah.
And like you said, like every single time actually that's come back around and we have a better relationship than ever.
Yeah.
Like, but you can't be attached to that being the
Yeah.
case because you don't know the timeline. You don't know if
right.
that's going to happen, and that can't be that what you base your decision on.
Yeah.
But that's love and freedom and freeing up our energy to be creative and creating more of what's possible and more of what we deserve, and then setting that tone and bar for everybody in our that we love and care about to choose that for themselves if they want to as well.
Yeah. And I feel like this is another ripple of like what I have been able to witness and actually celebrate within myself, that I have gotten to this point where it feels lonely sometimes being the example. And again, it feeds into you wanting other people to come with you. But what I've noticed recently is like the exchange back, coming back from that now in places that I never thought possible. And it took a detachment. I'm not doing this for anyone else. I'm doing this for myself. And I'm the example of that. And at that point, and this is the number one thing that I like attending women's circles, that it's the number one thing that gets communicated about in circle with women, is they're like, how do I get my partner to like jump to where I am right now? It's been a really big thing. And the thing is you just have to be the example. And you have to stay solid. You're not being the example because you want them to come there. You're just being the example because it's a choice in life that you're making. And I think this is where things can go a little bit wrong, because as soon as you become that example and they feel the detachment to you're not doing it for them, you're not trying to make them go somewhere, they will lean in. They will lean in so quickly.
But maybe not without a tantrum first, which is what I've noticed.
Okay.
So a lot of people tend to know that the person's going to have an emotional response, and they will tiptoe around not wanting to trigger an emotional response in someone. Again, a little bit of what we talked about last week. But so they will, not be super solid to not trigger it, but then they don't even get to the lean in stage because that person has to get that emotion triggered. Do you need to take responsibility for that? No.
And I feel like if we're looking at the tantrum is them getting to neutralize what's in the way, because if they already had what it was, they would already be where you're at. Like it's just a part of the process for them to get neutral and be like, I do want to choose that. But they'd have to, like, the tantrum is clearing something in the past, a story that they're attached to, so that they can meet the new part of. Yeah, and I think that, like, you know, especially like before I really moved into like understanding consciously like my life and all the rest of it, I dipped my toes into like self-help and stuff like that. And like I see this play out a lot actually when people are just starting to move into like this an awakening phase, is that they're like, they can get like everybody has to be doing this, but it's actually you just want to do it for yourself. Just be the example. I know I fell into that. I'm like, oh my God, like, and then it caused friction in my relationships, and then I had relationship fallouts. And because I now didn't resonate with the way that they think and all the rest of it, and it was causing us to communicate in a way that was like, you know, mismatch. And there was a tantrum even on my part back then of like, oh my God, like, come on, come with me. But actually what I needed to get to was, I'm doing this just for me. And I love you where you're at too. That's the higher heart chakra.
Yeah.
Peace with where other people are at if you're choosing this.
And I mean, the full goal is that you can be 100% authentically free to be yourself in every moment, okay? And so when I say we've set the bar for relationships, people can be working. Not everyone is like, yeah, I'm there, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't have relationships with those people, but it can be, it's like, how much are we spending our time? So I have my people, a couple that are like the bars there. I could spend so much time with them. However, I still have other people that are working on things, and I'm still working for other people's bar too. 100%. That's it's equal in that. However, I'll just choose to spend maybe a little bit of time with some people and more time with others, depending on where they're at in their alignment with me being able to be me. So say I can catch up with someone and I'm feeling like, oh, I'm so free to be my authentic self. And then we touch on a subject where it gets a bit wobbly. And now I'm going to love myself enough to just leave that there. There's nothing going astray here. It's just like, okay, I think I'm done here right now. And we can, in a healthy way, part ways. And that was perfect for where that relationship's at, right? Yeah. And then, so we get to, that's choosing where we're putting, that's discernment, and choosing where we're putting our energy really wisely. Spend it, more time with the people that you can be yourself with, less time, but it's like building a muscle, right? With those people that we get a little wobbly with, still lean in when you feel inspired to lean in, because you're going to the gym and you're building that muscle of being able to be, the goal is being able to be our authenticity with like full authenticity, with full freedom with every single person on this planet. Are we there yet? No. I don't know anyone that's there yet.
Yeah.
But we can take everything as an opportunity as well, without it being hard. Like, we get to drive this bus, right?
I've got a curiosity, so I'm absolutely going live here because this is, I don't have an answer to this, but I've got a curiosity on the when you said, and there are other people that have a bar. I can't in my reality see that. Is that always the case, or do we get to a point where our bar is our own bar? And I don't know. I'm curious.
I just saw an example in my mind because I saw my daughter actually saying, "Mum, you still got to meet my bar," and I was like, which makes me curious.
Okay.
And I feel like it's still on the topic of self-responsibility. So, for example, we're about to go to Bali, right? On a girls'. Someone's turning 40, so we're going on a girls' trip. Yeah. And my daughter has always said that she wants to go to Bali. That's something that she really, really wants to do. And so I sat with this because we have a great relationship, an amazing relationship. And I felt oh gosh, it would be really awesome. And I know that you girls love her just as much. Yeah. So we could have included her. We could have done that. However, there was something in me, and the knowing, and this is her, like the visual is her going, "Come on, Mum," because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to release that responsibility of Mum having her join us on that trip, right? And so I'm still working on her bar, going, "Hey, I'm practically an adult now. You don't have to be the source of my happiness. You don't have to hover. You don't have to do all of this. Hold space," like we talked about. Hold space that I have got this.
Yeah.
I'm still working on being that.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me that it would be your children, because your children are here to be the next evolution of you. So they're coming in with more than what we came in with. And so it makes sense that would be. And if I reflect now in this moment, I'm like, yeah, my son will pull me up like all the time and go, "Mum, you're not saying that for the right reason, or you're not doing that." And I've gotten to a point where I'm like, he's onto it. I know that he's onto it. So in that moment, I'll be like, self-check. I'm like, damn it, he's right
That's
again.
His bar.
He's like, hey, Mom. No, we're not doing that, you know.
Probably he'll just be like, "Hey, I'm not spending time with you right now until you get this."
Yeah, so thank you for leaning into that.
How cool is that, though? We don't have to be as cutthroat, although there's times that, yes, that's necessary. If you're an employer, like, I believe that bar should be a very like very
Yes.
clear. But with other situations like our family members, it can just be, hey, just for now while you're working on that, let's just not spend the next couple of hours together or as much time together right now.
Yeah, or not go on that Bali trip, because the outcome of it is when you do get that and you do go to Bali, two individuals, two authentic people,
100%.
fun.
Yes.
Which like is quite the theme of like what I was bringing up with Bali, is that like the gift of my birthday from every one of you women. And I actually talked this out the other day and I was like, I'm going to just explain. So the biggest gift that I wanted to receive was to witness every person choosing themselves, because we're moving ourselves away from the family home, and we are uniquely allowed to make a decision in every moment. And so I don't want to get into a group situation where we fall into, I don't know if I'll do that because I don't know if that person would want to do that. Like, I want you to come solidly and go, this is what I'm doing today. Is that in alignment with anyone else?
Yeah.
If not, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, that is what I'm choosing. And I had a really good friend of mine say to me, hey, are you like doing that because, you know, you don't want to make it about you for your birthday? Like, you know, is there something there? And I said, no, it's not that at all. I said, I have like this passionate knowing that this is like the biggest gift. But I said, but thank you for asking me, because then I got to sit with it. And what I ended up realizing is you are in my movie screen and you are reflecting a self of mine. And if you can get this, and if the five other women can get this, you have just shown me into myself so beautifully how solid I am in so many aspects of myself. And I'm like, yeah, so while it looked like a unselfish thing to do, it's actually quite selfish, because, you know, in a beautiful way, because I'm like witnessing you guys choosing yourself and being your authentic self and being all of that gives my heart so much. Like, I could feel the energy of what was going to occur and what is going to occur when we go there, but actually understanding it because I always take things in a deeper manner. When I understood it at a deeper degree, like that's what it actually is for me. That's the best gift ever.
You're asking for those five to fully experience the authenticity of 5 different people.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a gift.
It just excites me so
much.
What
a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I said it in the beginning, I don't think I knew the extent of like why it was so important to me that was the gift that I received from all of you. But now I really understand it. And now I can even link it into this episode when we're communicating about the higher heart chakra. It's like, yeah, that would make my heart go.
Oh gosh, there's so many layers to this though,
Yeah.
hey? Like that's the gift, mate. Like, absolutely. Yes, we're going to prioritize that freedom and our own authenticity. But when we send a ripple effect on and on and on from that, we get the gift of other people going, oh, it's safe to do that. Actually, on the other side of that tantrum, I have a better relationship. Oh my goodness. Like, oh, there's so many things compounding. So now, and even talking this out, I love it because I can go, oh, I can see it now with my daughter, Haley, when it's just the two of us, we are fully authentic and express. So her and I would go to Bali, mate, it would be epic. But
in a
I'm
group?
still working on the group scenario. Is she being included? Like, and I don't need to do that. Like, she's an epic human that has got her own back.
Yeah.
But as a mum, I'm still working on that. So this has been an epic conversation to see that. But it's discernment. When do we support others because they're open to it and they could do like that would be a benefit thing? And when do they absolutely not need it because they've got this or they want to learn it in a different way to wrap it up? Yeah.
And as we're coming to the end of this episode, something that was just coming through to really like cap this is what I know to be true is that when we all decided to go to Bali and we put an intention in, and I think that this is going to be a nugget for people that have listened to this episode. We put the intention in and all of the things that we've had to work on leading us up to going away to this amazing holiday that's been created has been non-responsibility, like knowing, like, does this need space, like all the things that we've communicated about and all the things that we're talking about, and to move us into the higher chakra, not just you and I, but every person that has been involved in that intention setting, which is the important part, their bodies have had to catch up to it, so that when we do go there, we are an embodiment of that, which is so exciting. And I can't wait to see, and I can't wait to share, like, after the actual event. But I think the gift that I want to give you is it started with an intention, and anybody can choose as big or small of an intention that is going to allow them to start moving into the path of this. And the reality will just start evolving just like it is now. And that's magic.
Oh, so magic. But you've just literally explained how to create your reality right there. Yeah. You set an intention, you set the things in motion, you do the work. As long as you're not shying away from the work, okay? The work, I'm going to keep coming, I don't know why, back to people not shying away from people having tantrums, okay? As long as those tantrums aren't projected at you and you let them deal with that. That's last week's episode. That's the work, right? It's the uncomfortable. But this is how we create epic Bali trips, or whatever that is for you. You do the work between when you set the intention and the actual manifestation of it, and then you get the sweet spot of enjoying the creation, the magic.
And the work is not a thought, it's not in the mind, it naturally will occur in your reality. So when the situations show up, you don't need to look for them. When they show up in your reality, working through them as they're coming through is the key.
And making change, actioning things in the physical, doing the uncomfortable things, having the conversations, setting the bar,
having your own tantrums and being
your own tantrums, taking responsibility for your own tantrums. 100%.
All the things. But
yay. Great. Well, great chat. Great chat.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I've really enjoyed this one, and I'm going to enjoy listening back to it because I don't always remember what actually came out. So
thank you for being co-creators with us.
Anyway, till next time, sending you all some higher heart chakra love. Yeah. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Mandorla. We want to acknowledge your contribution in the co-creation of our new evolved world.
Sending you all so much love, and until next time, remember, you are the creator.